guys, so I definitely cannot find another Series 1 igniter that I have. The only way that I can think of to prove it with this igniter is obviously to repin the dead cylinders over to cylinders that obviously aren't dead. So I'd have to repin the loom and the coil side both over to like pin one over to cylinder 5 and then start the car and see if it runs. It's about the only way that I could see it would actually illuminate it without having a spare box. The other option is obviously to try and find someone who's got a Series 1 igniter box that then hopefully that igniter box works. So this is exactly the sort of thing this car, yeah, just trying to avoid. This is just, this car, I can't even begin. The amount of hours that have gone into this freaking car is just, all right, well, because I'll start putting posts and stuff out and it can go back out under the cover until we get another igniter box. So I was lying to you guys, it's not in here for the last time because we're gonna have to keep hunting for other parts and then we're still gotta get through a tune yet. So just freaking doing my head in this. All right guys, quick call around. I've managed to find another box pretty locally. Obviously because of the wet weather, he can't access it right now, but probably tonight he should be able to grab it and I should have it tomorrow just to test. He reckons that he pulled it out of a car that it had a dead cylinder, one dead one, but even if it's got a dead cylinder, as long as it changes when we put it in, if it's different cylinders or it's not as many cylinders or something, it'll at least sort of rule that that's the issue. So it's at least going to be useful for fault finding. So yeah, we'll grab that tomorrow and we'll go from there. But you know, by my testing of the wiring, it appears that the wiring isn't a problem, at least not for cylinder 1. Which we know is not firing at the moment, so we'll start there. We'll try and figure out the reasoning for cylinder 1 and then apply that to the other ones that are dead, and hopefully after that we're on our way.
We'll see if that helps.
Alright guys, lucky I didn't have a complete mental breakdown. It appears what we pretty much had was just a series of unfortunate events. After I filmed that last little segment, the fuel pump decided to stop working as well. The fuel pump just stopped working off its own prime. Still worked if I hardwired it in. It wasn't a pump issue or anything, but it just stopped triggering. So what we actually found was it was the actual connection of the body loom, of the engine loom plug to the ECU was not quite happy. They're a bit tight, especially on a new ECU. It needed a bit of basically fiddling around an adjustment and a little bit tighter on the bolt. So that sort of sorted that, but I'm pretty sure when I unwrapped this to show you how terrible that was when I was looking for stuff in the injector loom, I must have just pinched them together enough to short it, and it blew the injector fuse. So it killed the injector fuse when we did that as well. So that's why it wouldn't run again. But what it appears is that obviously the fuel pump failure or stop working is what led us to the plug on the ECU, and once we plugged the plug on the ECU, we thought, well, that's probably maybe an issue, the issue that the 3 cylinders were having with not firing, and maybe with the ECU plugged in properly, all 6 cylinders would fire. But then we couldn't get it to start because the injectors wouldn't fire. So anyway, we got there in the end. It's running. It's making a pretty god-awful noise though, which at the moment we're just taking the power steering belt off just to see if it's power steering related. If not, I don't know, it sounds a bit like the exhaust cam. Could just be a sticky lifter, maybe some heat will free up the lifter, or it could just be something to do with the timing belt. Not 100% sure, but we'll just investigate what the hell this little noise is. But apart from that, it is running on all 6 now. Obviously the tune needs a bit of work, it's a bit rich and stuff like that, but it's running on all 6. It's running. I thought this day would never come. It's running. It is running.
And this baby was running.
This baby was running. So after all this time,
I don't know. I feel like it's got to be something up here.
Started again to find out.
Yeah.
Like I said, has been sitting for quite a long time. Could just be a sticky lifter. Yeehaw! Righto guys, so we just removed the timing cover on it without it because we were trying to investigate a bit of a noise, but by the time we got the timing cover off and started it again, it would have gone. So we're pretty sure it was just a sticky lifter on the exhaust side. I think that's all good. So happy days, really. We've still got this water leak. I screwed around with this top hose a fair while yesterday, and a closer inspection now that it's actually heated up and still leaking. Once it's pressurized, is that it's actually coming out of the fitting into the manifold. So it's where the fitting's pressed into the manifold. It's not actually where the hose is. So we're going to have to, when it cools, take the hose off, pull that out, and reseal it back into the manifold. Classic Chinese crap, pretty much. It just is what it is. But apart from that, everything's good. Pretty happy with everything. This thing has other issues, as well as, like we talked about with that battery, whoever's modified the battery or modified the terminals to run the wrong battery. There's some sort of issue where the brake lights are just on all the time. Rex had a look. He reckons it's something to do with the actual contact on the pedal. So there's other issues and stuff to look at, but it's running for the most part. One step closer, one mighty big step closer. Righto guys, a few little updates on the big girl. So this morning, first thing this morning, got here, I took out the little neck out of the manifold. It was an absolute prick of a job, very difficult job, and we have re-stagged that back in. Just now, I've let that set all day and just now filled it back up with water and started it. It appears we have fixed our issue with water leaking out of that, which is awesome. So that water leak's sorted, fuel leaks are all sorted, so we've got no leaks. But one thing I did find when we started it back up this afternoon is the tick was back. That lifter tick had come back. And then I realized that I'd pinned the intake air temp sensor to the wrong pin and it wasn't actually working. So turned it off, and while I sorted that out, it obviously cooled down, and when I started it back up, lifter tick had gone away. So very similar to what happened yesterday, where it had come, and then we spent a bit of time taking the front cover off, let it cool down, and after it cooled down, the lifter tick had gone away. So yeah, bit of a funny one, just seems to be a bit of a sticky lifter. So what I might do is, if it's still got that lifter tick tomorrow, might just run a bit of additive, that lifter free up additive, through this oil for a little bit. Just let it idle, rev it up a bit, and then dump this oil in. Obviously put fresh oil in it that doesn't have that additive for the dyno. Hopefully that sorts out that lifter, and then we're sort of sweet from there. But obviously just a bit of a sticky lifter from all that time sitting, because Lord knows how long it was sitting for. Although while the head was off and we were doing the head, I did actually clean those lifters out. Chucked them in a bucket of thinners and just let it sort of clean them right out. So anyway, we'll try and sort out that lifter free up. This is all I've done for now for his breathers. I just chucked a rag over that hose just so that it is somewhat filtered. He can sort out a catch can at a later date. But yeah, this thing, with those leaks and everything fixed, I've rotated the tires. I found a wheel nut socket in the car, so I've rotated the fronts to the rear because they're much better condition than these, although they are still very old. So fingers crossed they don't cause any issue with the dyno. But yeah, apart from trying to get rid of this lifter tick, this thing's ready to hit the dyno now. So very exciting stuff. That's happy days. Can't wait. Excited to see some results out of this thing and finally have it finished. So also obviously set the timing as well. So for anyone at home playing with RB25s, what I like to do is I like to set the timing with the CAS as advanced as you possibly can go. So I set the CAS physically fully advanced, and then I actually set the timing and the ECU to match that. So that way, for us, obviously, as tuners, you send a car away with a customer, all the customer can do physically is retard the timing without actually changing the tune file. Whereas if you set the timing with the CAS, you know, in the middle or all the way retarded or something, the customer can take the car and physically advance the timing. And, you know, if you've tuned it for, you know, optimizing that timing and they've got a bad batch of fuel plus advance the CAS, well, then it can end in disaster. So that's something that I always practice with adjustable trigger systems like this. I always set the adjustable trigger system to complete advance so that when the customer takes it, you know, someone wants to play funny buggers with you, they can't actually accidentally or on purpose advance your timing too much and cause problems. So, alrighty guys, start up this morning and that lifter tick's gone. So that's awesome. Cold start seems pretty good. All happy days. There's a few things I did this morning which I'd just forgotten about. Things just like locking the high cast lock bars, stuff like that. I just did a bit of a by-eye alignment as best I can. Obviously the owner's gonna have to take it to get a proper alignment once he gets it back. So yeah, basically just did a once over underneath the car, another check, but we're ready for the dyno. So my prediction, we just tuned this thing, this is a Pulsar GDX 3076 Gen 2, but it's the same manifold design as the one on this car, which is those cheap Chinese stainless spaghetti manifolds with the gate port directly out of the bottom of the collector, which doesn't make any sense. It's the worst thing for priority flow, but we did have issues with this. As you can see, it's Series 2 yellow jacket coils. And what we found is we got to a point where we couldn't control boost anymore, and any less timing, the boost would get too out of control, we'd run out of ignition, and any more timing would get the boost under control, but we'd start to get a bit of knock. So two things, given that this is a DE, it's already a bit higher compression naturally, for one. For two, we've got the same manifold, so our boost control issues are going to be more accentuated with that setup. And thirdly, Series 1 with the igniter box, with the split fires, means we're going to have an even weaker ignition. So compared to this thing, we had to pull it up at 411, and we had to pull the limiter at 6.8 to get it under control. And that's, yeah, GDX Gen 2, bigger housing and a better ignition and lower compression. So with that thing being higher compression, worse ignition, and an even worse hot side setup for boost control, I've got a feeling that we are going to have some pretty bad issues with it. I think we're definitely going to have to pull it up at quite a low RPM for it to be under control, and there's literally nothing else we can do about that. And that's hoping that that welded manifold stays alive. I was extremely vocal with the owner when I talked to him about either just getting a new manifold or cutting that flange and welding it, that it wasn't a matter of if that weld would crack, it was a matter of when. Those Chinese stainless manifolds are not very good steel. The work hardening of the welds, every time you weld it, it will just crack along the edge of the welds eventually. So I'm hoping it doesn't crack during the dyno session, but it will crack eventually one day. It will. It's just that Chinese stainless when it gets welded anyway. I did put that to the owner at the time, and he wanted me to weld it up. He didn't want to pay for a new manifold, so it is what it is. Basically, I don't expect we're going to get to our 400 horsepower goal with this combination of parts. That just is what it is. And yeah, but anyway, we'll just see what happens. I reckon we'll have to pull it up pretty low RPM and not a lot of boost if we can get the boost out of it, but we'll just see how it responds. Woo, it moves. Righto guys, so yeah, noise hasn't come back. We've got another little noise, which is actually just the balancer hitting on the front timing cover. One of the bottom bolt on this side is missing the little rubber backing on it, which actually holds the cover in, so it's allowed it just to move out sort of that couple of mil, which means that the balance is just rubbing on it a bit. But as far as the actual tick, it's gone. So at this stage, we're going to continue on with the tune. See how it goes. Not super worried about it. Rex managed to get the driver's window down, which is awesome because that makes it much nicer to tune. We jerry-rigged a thing to turn the...
I have no idea how I'm going to get it back up.
We'll figure it out. Rex jerry-rigged the thing to turn the brake lights off as well. So brake lights aren't consistently on, but that is something that the owner is going to have to get sorted with an auto sparky. Eventually, like we talked about, there's a few things on this car he's going to have to actually get looked at. So these tyres are actually 10 years old, so fingers crossed they hold together for this tune. But anyway, we'll see how we go. So, like I said to you guys, I think we're going to have boost control issues. You know, if we have boost control issues, I'm not going to go spending 2 days trying to get it right. Honestly, we're sort of getting to a point where we're pretty over cheap Chinese parts costing us so much time. It just devalues our time. So, you know, if it's got boost control issues, it's got boost control issues. I'll just set the limiter for where it's, you know, reasonable. And it's just going to need a revised setup to fix the issue. That's it. There's only so much you can tune out of it, and you know, I'm not going to waste 2 days trying to tune it out. So anyway, we'll just see how it goes. Maybe it'll surprise us, but let's get into it and see what it does. Righto guys, so motor's completely shut up. It's dead silent now, which is wicked. It's running really good. Motor sounds good. Everything sounds real healthy. But as we expected, shooting for the moon boost. No boost control at all. It doesn't even sound like the gate's opening, which is going to double check the gate with the regulated air from the compressor just to see if we can open it. It's just one of those cheap China gates. Again, really starting to get over trying to make China parts work. It's yeah, like I explained. If you
There are certain things that are okay.
oh, even if it's your own and you can get away with doing it yourself, that's sweet. But for us as a business, trying to
Don't send it to you.
yeah, basically don't send it to your tuner to sort out. Not this guy's, well, sorta, but you know, this case is a little bit different, but the fact is just that as a business, it's not worth our time to try and make this crap work. It ends up costing the customer more in labor time for us to try and get it to work than it would be just for them to buy decent parts. So anyway, it is what it is. We got it here at the moment. We've got to try and see if it works. Yeah, absolute pain in the ass. But anyway, apart from that, motor sounds awesome. Everything is healthy. It's yeah, it's pulling good. It's just shooting for the moon for boost is all. So.
I should point out too that there's China and then there's China too. There are different grades of China parts.
But like these manifolds particularly, I'm pretty interested to just not even touch one ever again. Not even touch a car fitted with one ever again. They don't work. They're terrible. This is a particularly just an eBay China gate, like a terrible.
Problem.
Where's that coming from? The reference?
Oh yeah.
The banjo?
The banjo bolt's not even tight.
Oh, there you go. That's probably something to do with it.
Probably most of it.
We'll try that first. Righto guys, so some fairly surprising results, some not so surprising results. Firstly, most surprising is that we didn't have any boost control issues, and that is dumbfounding. I cannot understand. So my only thought is that one that I showed just before in this video that we did on Wednesday, that wastegate was plumbed back into the exhaust, whereas this one's a screamer, so perhaps that's helping. I don't know, but I'll take it. Whatever it's doing, I don't know why, but it's controlling boost, and I will take that all day. Sorry guys, sick again. But anyway, it's aside from a few issues, a few things that we had to fix, vacuum leaks and things like that, you know, it went pretty well, the tune. So what I ended up having to do But the biggest issue at the moment is that we're limited by this ignition. So it's a Series 1 ignition with the split fire coil packs with the igniter box, and we knew that this was going to be a limiting factor. So we're limited by ignition. We can't get as much boost in as we wanted to get in, and I ended up actually having to ramp in the boost really steady. So I had to keep a lot of boost out of those peak torque to keep the cylinder pressure down so that we weren't blowing out spark, and just ramp a bit more boost in up top and throw a bit of timing at it up top. So we ended up at 340 at the wheels, so you can see what I mean. This boost sort of comes in, and instead of just ramping all the way up, I sort of had to sort of dial it in and bring it in a bit steady. So it just is what it is. With a better ignition, we should be able to go, you know, quite a bit more, which would be great. But it is what it is for now. So the power is very linear. The torque's pretty flat, so that's what you end up with. So nice little linear power graph. 340 at the wheels is still pretty staunch. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. And yeah, nice, mostly flat torque curve. Should be still good fun to drive, good fun on the street. But until he does something about this ignition, that is where it stops. So, like I said, guys, I was starting to think this day would never come, and I'm stoked that it is here and this thing is mostly sorted. What a long, drawn-out process this build has been. Obviously, the owner still has quite a ways to go from where he wants it to be. Like originally when it came here, we were meant to do 5-stud conversion and brakes and everything, and everything just got way too hard to get and way too expensive, and I kept getting screwed around by people trying to buy second-hand parts, and it's just not really our forte or what we do. It was costing us too much time and money, so it sort of turned into us just doing what we need to do to get it running properly and tuned. And even that was just one thing after another. But we are finally at this point. It's running, it's healthy, it's doing everything it's supposed to do. It feels responsive, it feels good on the dyno. You know, I'm mostly pretty happy with the setup. Just would like a better manifold, intake and exhaust, a better wastegate, and a better ignition, and I'll be, you know, happy to push this thing over 400. But anyway, until then, this is what it is. Happy bloody days. Happy days. So boy, am I glad to see some results. Happy boy today. Happy boy. Righto guys, so just editing this video and realised that in all my excitement finally seeing some results from this car that I forgot to actually film any kind of outro. But anyway, that is the mighty DE+t build finally finished for our part at the very least. Huge learning curve obviously. That car did arrive when the business was sort of brand new and fresh, and we did learn a lot about that car. But the main thing is that we persisted with it, we got it done, we're really happy with the result, the owner's very happy with the result. And considering how that car, the state that it was in when it got here, it really does have a new lease on life now. So the interior of that car is actually quite clean. It's actually like once the bodywork is done, that will actually be quite a nice example of an R33. So stoked that so much of it did get done properly in the end. You know, it's got the good 25DE+t gearbox and stuff in it. So you know, a few of those cheap parts which were a pain to deal with, but at the end of the day, they did all work out. The car works, and yeah, it goes awesome. So that's that. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully that is gonna hold the record forever for the longest, most drawn out build on this channel ever. Hopefully there's never gonna be another car that breaks that record. But anyway, regardless, still stoked to have done the job. Happy to have finished it and learnt what we learned in the process. And yeah, excited to see the thing around. So thanks for watching. As always, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Go check out the merch. Peace out, see you, bye.